Hi, everyone. I'm Cat Oriel with Forbes Breaking News, and today I'm here with Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne of Texas. Congresswoman, thanks so much for joining me today.
Great to be here. I appreciate you. I appreciate you highlighting this really important issue.
Yeah, and so, with these conversations, I always like to start about the on-the-ground realities. You're from Texas, as I mentioned, but your district spans the suburban area between Fort Worth and Dallas. So you're a little further from the southern border, but how does the migrant and border crisis impact your district?
I mean, the fact is, just because we're not on the southern border doesn't mean like we're not every other, state that's being affected by this directly. But Texas is taking a hit. When you consider that 60% of the getaways of people entering our country illegally have been coming through Texas, 40% of the illegal immigrants who've come in, of the 10 million who've come in the last 3 years have entered through Texas and gone through that state. We're definitely seeing it in North Texas. If you were to be a fly on the wall for some of my law enforcement roundtables, you will hear directly from the sheriffs that they see increased crime, increased gang activity, definitely increased drug activity. The number of people that we have had now targeted and died from fentanyl poisonings alone is shocking, and it's gone up triple digits.
So yesterday, the Senate released a bipartisan aid proposal for Ukraine, Israel, and border security. So what are your reactions to that agreement? Do you support the deal, especially on the border?
It was just released last night. I've spent all morning pouring into it. And I got to tell you, I'm just so disappointed in that bill. What they want to do is they want to take the numbers that we are seeing now and they want to normalize them. And just to put it into context, during Obama administration and Trump administration, if they had more than 1,000 illegal crossings in a day, that was considered a crisis and they addressed it. What this bill wants to do is actually normalize 5,000 people. I'm sorry, 4,999 people, allowing them to come over on average in a week each day. And actually, that could be upwards of 8,500 people a day. Now, do the math. That's about 2 million illegal immigrants entering our country illegally every year. It's just staggering. And then on top of it, they want to give work permits. They are allowing children again to be used as child slaves, basically being bought and sold over our borders. It does nothing to help build the wall. It does nothing to help local law enforcement or to partner with our state law enforcement officers. And then they want a ton more money for not doing their job. Where they want to put that money is expediting more illegals into our country. You can't normalize these numbers when we're seeing record breaking every month. Last month alone, we had 300,000 people enter our country. You are seeing increases in crime. You are seeing criminal illegal aliens right now that are committing rapes, murders, DUI deaths. And it's a complete new era of narco slavery at our borders right now. And this bill from the Senate does nothing to address that.
What do you say to the people that might ask, why is no deal better than this one?
Well, I would say that we don't have to have a brand new law to be able, we don't need a new bill coming out of Congress. What we do need to do is force this administration to follow the laws that are currently on the books. During the Trump administration, you had a very clear policy for CBP. It was deport criminal illegal aliens. It was to let's secure our border, and it was to have people apply for asylum from either Mexico or the first safe country that they came into, recognizing the fact that nearly 80 or 90% of the people who apply for asylum don't qualify. So what you have seen from this administration is they have a catch and release program. People are encouraged to come to the border. They're picked up, they're put on buses, they're put on planes, and they're sent now to cities across the country. If they were to just enforce the laws that we currently have, which the president has absolute power to do, considering that he's taken those powers away, from CBP to do their job, if he were simply to enforce the laws right now, we could have control of our borders tomorrow. And you can see that in Texas. Texas has actually had to take it upon itself. They had to spend $5 billion last year alone. This year, they're stepping it up and they're spending over $6.4 billion to do the job that the federal government should be doing. But what you're seeing is actually in Texas, when you enforce our laws, they're seeing decreases in the number of people who are coming at our borders. And instead, they're going through states like Arizona, they're going through states like California that are not doing as good of a job. And I'll tell you, if all of the border states got together and decided we're going to end this illegal immigration, we are going to secure our borders, that they could do it.
Mm-hmm. So on the state level, do you fully support everything Governor Abbott's doing in his actions on the migrant crisis, especially the standoff that's going on in Eagle Pass right now?
We're having an invasion of our country. I absolutely support Governor Abbott having to do what he is doing, because the federal government's policies are causing this catastrophe. But the fact is, he shouldn't have to do it. This is the federal government's responsibility. They collect taxes from hardworking Texans to be able to do this job. And on top of that, now the state's having to spend billions of dollars of its own to do the job that they're sending money to DC to do. But again, when you look at the number of people who are dying, 100,000 deaths from fentanyl, 5 Texans are dying from that poisoning every day in our state. And it is a catastrophe. It does not have to happen. We're seeing the destruction and the death of our country and our people. And instead of doing something about it, you've got an administration who is wiping its hands and now blaming Congress, when they know if he just were to take it seriously and start enforcing our laws, they could get control of our border tomorrow.
Well, speaking of that, we are headed into an election year. And are you at all concerned that Biden could turn the table around and say, well, Republicans rejected the border deal, and this might help him politically if he says that? And Biden might say, and Democrats might be able to easily make the argument, say, we tried to work with them, but then it was shot down. So are you afraid of that, one? And then how will you message the opposition to this bill? I know you've already listed all of the numbers, but for people who this might all go over their head, and like I said, might just ask, why not just agree to any deal? How are you going to message to the opposition?
Well, I think Democrats, the deal that they're having, is the reason why it's worse to have it than to not have it is the fact that, again, you're normalizing those numbers, and the precedent that you're setting down for future administrations to be able to control it is frightening. But the fact is that Republicans were able to pass our Border Security Act back in May. We have already had solutions that would work to secure our borders. The Remain in Mexico policy, stopping catch and release, continuing the construction of our border wall, working with local law enforcement officers to enforce our federal immigration laws. Those are all practical solutions that have already been proven to be effective, that we have on the table, that Democrats have ignored. They won't even bring it for a vote because they don't want to vote against it in the Senate. They don't want to vote against that bill. So they're not going to put it on there, but they're going to have a messaging bill instead. The fact is that Republicans in the House have legitimate solutions. They have passed out of the House. We are ready to control the border. Democrats are throwing around messaging bills that will only make this country less safe, more dangerous, and continue human trafficking, human slavery, and cartel activity in our country. And we cannot support it. And this is literally a hill I'm willing to die on.
Wow. And if Biden gets reelected, then I'm also curious if Biden's are thinking ahead, next term, you might get a deal that's less attractive next time around. So are you concerned about that?
I think right now, when you start looking at Biden's polling numbers, and you start looking at his polling numbers specifically as it relate to his policies on the border, he's tanking for a reason. And senators who are not willing to be serious and pick up the mantle of HR 2 are missing the boat as well. And it's not just, by the way, the border where Biden's policy, polling numbers are tanking. It's across the board. So while he may be president, I don't see that happening. But if he were to win the election, I really don't believe that that's going to happen in the Senate. I don't believe that's going to happen in the House, that they're going to take the majority over. I think people are looking for pragmatic solutions. They see it every day in their communities, the destruction that's being caused by Democrat and liberal policies, and they want to see an end to it.
And so last week, House Republicans on the Homeland Security Committee recommended that the House impeach Biden's Department of Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas. Will it pass in the full House?
I believe so. We are having conversations. We're going to be whipping that vote this week, and we'll see. We are going to be meeting in conference tomorrow morning. I'm sure we're going to have a large discussion about it, but the fact is that you have had basically Mayorkas, who's acted as the lead, the henchman at HMS, that has prevented and specifically have told CBP to ignore federal laws. It has put our nation at risk. He has lied to Congress. You got to make an example and hold these cabinet members responsible. They have to be held accountable. And too few times in the federal bureaucracy do we do that. It has to happen now. This whole reimagining of America at the destruction of American lives, where you've got 100,000 people, more than any other, terrorist act that has been committed on our soil, has happened in the last 3 years. It's got to stop. People see it, and I would really love for some of these people to get phone calls from parents who've lost their children, knowing that what is happening at the border, and whether or not it's from children who are being targeted with fentanyl, whether or not it is a criminal illegal alien who should not be in this country, who is driving, under the influence and hits somebody and kills somebody's child, or whether or not it's the punks that were in New York beating up on our police officers. Enough is enough. People are seeing it, and it's got to stop, and it's got to start with policies. This is why you're seeing the House force the administration to try to do its job through not funding the further destruction of our country.
Well, there have been countless hearings of the parents, and their testimonies. So why do you think the message isn't getting through?
I would say the message is getting through. I would say the message. Now, whether or not our Democrat colleagues on the other side of the aisle are listening to it, I don't know. But I think the American people are listening to it, and these parents who are coming and testifying, absolutely broken seeing what's been happening. These are political people. These are people who have lost a loved one, who want Congress to understand how it's happened, why it's happened, and prevent it from ever happening again. I would hope that anybody with a heart, anybody with a brain, anybody with ears would listen to them, hear what they're saying, and take it seriously.
Well, thank you for your time today. That's the end of my questions, but I just want to ask if there's anything else you want to add, and what can we expect to see next?
Well, what we're hoping to see next is actually the impeachment of Mayorkas. I think, I want to applaud Chairman Mark Green for doing it in such a thoughtful, well-executed manner, where he was looking at facts, looking at the decisions that Mayorkas has made that has led to the catastrophe that we see at the border, and has let facts ride this impeachment as opposed to just, partisan opinion. But I want to congratulate him on that. I think he's made a very strong case, and his committee has done a ton of work. And I'm looking forward to having that actually on the floor this week and being able to hold these cabinet members who are putting our national security in danger accountable.
Thank you so much for your time today, Congresswoman.
Thank you. Thank you for again, drawing attention to this really important issue.